So we've got a lot of information to cover today. Today we have Mark Carter, who is our Ag and Natural Resource Educator. Hold on, I'm going to start recording, and you guys are going to hear that part one more time.
It's already recording.
Thank you, Matthias. Okay, so today we've got Mark Carter. He's the Ag and Natural Resource Educator out of Blackford County. Did I get that right? Okay, perfect. Yep. His background, he does quite a bit with drones in the ag community. I would consider a specialist. One thing we had discussed was, why do we do these extension hot topics? Well, part of it is getting exposure to those specialists within the Purdue Extension community. So Mark is an educator out in the counties, but he travels all over the place teaching about drones. As we continue to let some folks in, if you guys don't mind taking a few minutes, we have our demographic poll. This is a Purdue poll. They like to do it. So if you don't mind answering those questions real quickly, we love our polls for that. And as folks fill that poll out, Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Cool. As soon as I can figure out.
Did I not make you a co-host?
You did. You did. I want to let you finish your poll there.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Did I miss anything, Matthias? I mean, pretty straightforward today. If you do have questions, throw them in the chat box. That'll be best for us, and should have a little time at the end as well. And let's see. Glad everyone could join us. So, who is going next month? I guess I'll look that up as we go through. But we have the rest of the year squared away pretty nicely. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll for now. Get rid of that. And then Mark, whenever you're ready, we can get going.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen and not have it go black on me again. So y'all probably get to see.
This is a time where I always say technology is great until it doesn't work. So today's definitely one of those situations. We're going to talk about technology, and sometimes it just doesn't work like we think it should. So,
which right now I can see digital agriculture. We're looking at the speaker view, so I can see the digital slide plus the slide that's coming up, Mark.
Yeah, that's what I was fussing with.
Yeah, while we're waiting, if you guys don't mind putting the county you're from, I love that data. That's always good for where we're going. So Grant County we're covered, Wabash, Hamilton. I think we need to figure.
Hang on.
Tippecanoe, good. Whitley County, Columbia City.
And there's a Huntington and Hamilton there too. So
I'm curious how many of you guys are all master gardeners and use this as education time, because that's another reason we did this. It's a good opportunity for everybody who needs those. I mean, it's free. It's one a month. If you watch these, I mean, that's 12 hours. So anyone who is just joining us for the first time, we do record all of these. So it's not like you have to be here every time.
There you go, Mark. You got it now.
Okay, you're good, Mark. I'll shut up.
Woohoo! I love it when I do something right. It doesn't happen too often.
All right, floor's yours, Mark.
Okay, well, here we go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate everybody being here today. My name's, again, Mark Carter. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Educator out of Blackford County. I'm also the Precision Ag Educator for the state. Precision Ag Educator just means drone program coordinator. So in this case, I like Jeff said, I do travel around the state, and I do work with people all over the state, help them to get their license, help them figure out what kind of UAVs or drones make sense for their operation, whether it's a farm, a utility, a municipality, a school, uh, insurance company. I've worked in just about every industry that we've come that you can imagine, and it's really neat to see a lot of the different use cases that people come across to put these things to work. Um, so with that, we'll get started. I uh, I do have this stuff keeps popping up on the screen. Um, I do have a lot of different experience. I've been flying since the fall of 2017. As far as normal camera drones, I've been flying spray drones for the last 5 years. So I've got a lot of different experiences, and it's been a lot of fun to work in. So I'm going to start outside of drones and just talk a little bit about digital agriculture. So, what is digital ag? We talk about the use of available tech to become more efficient on a farming operation. And really, when you think about digital, not just digital ag, but any digital tool, it's just using technology to become more efficient in whatever you're trying to do. In the case of agriculture, we use the equipment to collect, store, and analyze data, hoping that we can improve our value chain. And you know, as I think about uh, your production agriculture, everybody or a lot of people are familiar on the farm with things like auto steer, which has been around since the middle of the 90s, or GPS guidance on tractors, combines, all sprayers, all kinds of different things. And we use the interconnected devices to manipulate and leverage that data. Things like your cell phone. We all have most of us have a cell phone. Uh, we use the camera. We use different weather apps. We use apps to communicate. We use apps for entertainment. We use them for a little bit of everything. Play games. So all of those devices that we can use for decision making processes. Whether I'm watching the weather, I'm watching grain prices, I'm looking for new technology on for my farm, for my drone program, for whatever. So there's a lot of different uses, and you might wait, hang on here. We've got a lot of things going on here with technology. That's kind of a broad term there, Mark. Okay. So in let's talk about a little bit more about agriculture. Today's farming operation, that picture right there, you're probably looking at well over $1 million worth of equipment. That tractor, when it first came out, was about $600,000. That planter, I guarantee if it's a 60-foot planter, and if it looks like it might be a corn planter, but it could be a bean planter. Either way, I guarantee it's probably at least $400,000, and it could have anywhere between another $100,000 to $200,000 worth of technology on it, including down precision downforce, uh, precision uh, seed placement, variable rate technology for seed placement. I mean, there's a lot of technology on them, even to the point where they'll put the little globes, like you see the globe that's on top of the tractor. They will put a globe on the planter so that as it goes through the field, the tractor and the planter stay perfectly in line within a matter of an inch or two of exactly where you want those seeds to be placed. So the technology is just really amazing as where it's come from and where it continues to go. With the introduction of more and more artificial intelligence, or AI, that's the big buzzword right now. We have the tractors, staying on on the perfect course, but when they get down to the end row where they need to turn around, the operator in the tractor doesn't even have to hit the steering wheel. You can program them so the tractor will turn itself around, it'll raise the planter, and it'll lower it at the exact place that you want it. And even and after you've planted your we call them the headlands, or the rows you turn around on, as you come down, the planter will stop planting as soon as it hits that first row that's in your headland. And then when you turn around and you set your planter down, even if you set it down 5 or 6 rows before you're ready to start planting, it will wait until it gets to that last row before it starts planting. So you're not wasting a lot of seed and fertilizer on your end rows where you've already planted. You're actually saving some money there. So back in the 90s, when precision farming first came about, at that point it was more guidance than anything, because you wanted to drive straight to be able to maximize your getting the right amount of seed, the right amount of fertilizer, the right amount of pesticide in the right place. And with that came along what they call variable rate. So you see in this picture the yellow and the red and the green, where in the green you might put more of something on because the soil might be a better condition, and the red you might put a little less on because you don't need quite as much. So so in the mid 90s we come up with the guidance and the navigation and the variable rate. But at this point in time, that was 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, just about everything has it now. So we've evolved beyond the use of just navigation and guidance to where we can track every acre, every almost down to the plant. And we can do that through soil. We can track our soil tests. Excuse me. We can track how much of each input that we put on, whether it's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, whatever, any kind of stabilizers that we've used. And by that, I mean like a nitrogen stabilizer, so that you can get your nitrogen not just to have a big effect when you put it on, but it's consistent through the growing season. And we track all that through collection of through the collection of data, whether it's creating maps as we apply our inputs, or if we fly a drone to see what is the current condition of the plants, or whatever it is. And for again, most of that information we can come up with on our cell phones through different apps. John Deere's got their operations center. There's all kinds of different platforms for those. Okay, so again, and we call this remote sensing when we're collecting data. In the broadest sense, we use remote sensing for crop scouting, for yield maps, things like that. But today we're going to look a little bit more at the usage of drones in the collection of information, because that really, I mean, in farming, that's what we want. Now we can use them for other applications, and I'm going to get to that here in just a few minutes. But primarily, the use of drones is either collection of data or application of something. So in this case, if I was talking about crop scouting, which is what we do throughout the season, we go out, whether we're walking the fields or getting some kind of an aerial view to see what's going on, to find the areas that we need to go look for disease, lack of nutrients, too much water, not enough water, whatever the case may be. Anywhere we're going to have issues, to see if there's something that we can do about it. Too many weeds, not enough seeds, whatever. So for a long time, all we had for or for aerial imagery was either an airplane or satellite. And satellites come on hot and heavy here back in the early 2000s. One company that was very large into it was called Climate Corporation, has since then been incorporated into the Bayer organization. Um, so this is an overhead of the farm that I live on, and these pictures were taken back in 2018. Climate Corp is there on the left. One pixel for Climate Corp is about 10 meters. So think about a 30 to a 33-foot square for one pixel on from a satellite. Now, if you understand where the satellites are, they're 25 miles up in the sky. So they're not real close. Yes, the resolution gets better all the time. And the more money you want to spend, the better resolution you can get. Or if you look on the right, the picture on the right was taken with a Phantom 4 and processed by Drone Deploy, which is just one of the tools, or one of the software tools that we use to take all the pictures from a planned flight and stitch them all together into a map. And all we're looking at here is just plant health. So on both of them, you have on the satellite, you have a very large pixelated map, and on the right, you have a very tight pixelation. So I said 10 meters on one side versus 2 or 3 centimeters per pixel on the right. So at 400 feet, which is the highest I'm allowed to fly my drone above the ground, I get a very nice image, a very nice map to look at and find different issues within my fields. And that's the whole thing. That's the common goal. If I'm using the drone imagery for something, I'm looking for value. In this case, I'm looking for the value of my plant health. Anywhere that's a little bit different, it would be in red, and that's where I'm going to go look, because I want to see if I want to see what issues I've got. On my farm here, if you look I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but if you look up here on the top of the top right of this field right here, the top of this field, you see a red area there and some red through here. Well, I know that those are all hilltops and they're clay knobs, and they're not going to be they never do produce very well. But if I look over here at the point of the triangle, that 1 acre field right there, that made some of the best corn that we ever had that year at 234 bushels to the acre. And Climate was saying that it was fairly marginal versus a dark green. And these two pictures were done within 3 days of each other back in 2018 again. So I'm not saying Climate got it wrong. I'm just saying that the closer I can get to the crop, the better I can see it. So as we use the different images from the drone, this is a 30-acre field over in Delaware County that I flew back in 2018 as well. And the farmer had 400 acres that was just like this. And you can see the picture on the left. You see all the horizontal lines in it, the light green. He had a plug knife on his side dress applicator and didn't know it. And it showed up. It showed up when we did an overhead picture of it. So he learned that he needs to clear his nitrogen between fields. That way he doesn't have a plugged nozzle someplace. He also found that he had a whole bunch of giant ragweed in the top left corner that he didn't know he had. And then, mind you, this was all 9-foot corn at the time, and he kind of found that he had some issues back there. Not that he could do anything about it at that late in the game, but he didn't know that he had that much weed pressure back there. So just by getting up and taking and doing a flight, we were able to find some issues in the field. On the right, we've got the plant health. And one interesting thing about the plant health on this slide, you can see some green lines coming through it. Those green lines are all tile lines. And he didn't realize he had quite that much tile in that field. Now, these are the old tile, the clay tile from 120 years ago. So again, he didn't have very good records of that field. So it was kind of an interesting study. Okay, so what drones are available? There's two different types. We have fixed wings, we have multi-rotors, and we'll look at the multi-rotors here in just a second. Fixed wings are things like the down here in the bottom, we've got the SenseFly EB. I'm sorry, I take that back. The SenseFly EB is the top left. The bottom left is the Centera Phoenix. I think they call that the PTX now. We've got the Ag Eagle. We've got the AeroVironment Quanix, the white one. And I have personally crashed two of the white ones, and I've seen one of the green and black one, the one down in the bottom left. I've seen one of those crash as well. So the price point on these, it can range anywhere from, you know, $5,000 all the way up to $30,000 for one of these units. And again, it's going to depend on what kind of cameras you put on them. Most of these units are going to fly for about 45 minutes to an hour. And you can cover, you know, 500, anywhere from 350 to 700, 1,000 acres in one flight. So I mean, they can do a lot of work if you're just strictly mapping. The bad part about one of these units is if you have to stop and hover to look at something, most of these units cannot do that. There are some that are coming out that they call vertical takeoff and land units that have that capability, but most of these fixed wings are just a constant velocity, and they're always moving. So if an airplane comes in your airspace, which it does happen, you normally have three choices. You can return home and land, you can land now, or you can do an emergency stop. And I've done an emergency stop in the past, and I ended up crashing one of the AeroVironment's Quanix because of that. So it's kind of interesting how that all kind of works together. So again, those are fixed wings. Most of us, sorry, went the wrong way. Most of us kind of live in this world right here, where we use a what we call multi-rotor, a quadcopter. There are larger ones, you know, a hex or an octocopter where it'll have eight rotors on it. Again, most of these, the price point for a good portion of these is anywhere between 1,000 all the way up to, you know, 15,000, 20,000, depending on what capabilities you get. So I mean, you can see the brands here, and these are some of the older ones. The newer ones would be like the Mavic 3 Enterprise, Autel, that's the orange one up in the top right corner. They've got some newer models out. The Matrice 300 is actually the new one, is the Matrice 350. Again, they've so many different uses, and just on the ones that are on this page alone. The bottom left one is the Inspire. Oftentimes those get used for like making movies or TV shows, because they can fly faster. They can get the legs up out of the way of the camera, and that camera can pivot and roll up and down, so you can get you can get really good action shots with it. These drones are used for everything from inspections on bridges, buildings, infrastructure, to mapping. Goodness, public safety uses these things all the time. Again, we're going to look at that use cases here in just a few minutes. So I'll
Hey,
try and
Mark,
yeah.
We had a really good question about so you're talking about the different types of drones. The question was, are they remote controlled or by the deployer or guided by satellite? Could you just touch on how people get these things to move?
I can. Um, most of these are, well, I will say all of them are remote control. The remote controls are not all created equal. Some come in the form of a tablet. Some of them come in the form of a remote control, like what you'd see on a radio control car. Um, and they're not hard to fly. Most people say, "Oh, I could never fly one of those things." Well, yeah, actually you can, because the controllers are really easy to use. On they've got two thumbsticks. On your left thumb, you've got up and down, rotate left and right, and on your right thumbstick, it's forward, backward, left, and right. And then you might have a couple of rollers on the front that you use to roll the camera up and down or side to side with, or zoom in and out. Um, so they come with a remote control, and most of these you can fly as what we call a manual flight, or a planned flight. So a manual flight, you are manipulating the controls. You have full control over the drone. On a planned flight, you're telling it to do something specific, like you want it to do a serpentine flight for mapping, or if you've ever watched the Super Bowl or been to a concert or an outdoor event where they've had 1,000 drones in the air, and they're all doing the really cool light show. That is done by a planned flight. So just a lot more programming goes into it, rather than just the the doing a single drone. Okay, so when we start talking about the usefulness of the drones, they come in. You can get different cameras on them. If you look at most of these drones, they've got a camera of some sort. Most of these cameras are just a standard digital camera, so just the same kind of camera that what's on your cell phone. And we in the business, we call those RGB cameras: red, green, blue. It's just visible light. Uh, because we compare those to either a multispectral camera, a thermal camera, often also called an IR camera, um, hyperspectral cameras, uh, light sensors. I mean, there's gas sniffers. There's all kinds of different cameras or payloads that you can carry on a drone. For multispectrals, most of the time they'll have, if they've got several different light spectrums, it'll be green, red, blue, and maybe a near infrared, which is just invisible light. It might have what they call red edge, which is just that division between visible and invisible light in the red light spectrum. It's called red edge. Um, Again, it just depends on what you need the for the results that you're looking for. The special payloads that I was talking about, this camera right here is called the H20T. It's a DJI camera. It's more for public safety or engineering. Maybe some military use. It's got just a standard RGB camera. It's got a thermal camera on it. It's got a laser rangefinder, and it's got a zoom camera on it, for a 200 times zoom camera. I've got one of these here in the office somewhere, and I can read license plates at a mile away with it. So very useful for law enforcement. Very useful when you're trying to do an inspection on something that is large that you don't want to get anywhere near, like a windmill, or some of these substations, some of these high voltage substations, where you don't want to get in there too close, because There's overhead power lines, there's infrastructure in there that you could crash into. So plus the electromagnetic interference that you're going to get from, the utilities, whether it's a cell tower, a substation, high tension power lines. You don't want to get real close to that stuff. Another technology is called LiDAR. LiDAR, basically what these cameras do is they shoot thousands of lasers out of the camera, and when one of those lasers hits something, it reflects and the camera reads those. And as it does that, it can make a very very accurate 3D model of whatever you're trying to look at. And I'm going to show you an example of one of these here in just a few minutes. Let's see. I'm going to keep kind of moving through some of this. I've already shown you some three-dimensional maps or some two-dimensional maps. This is just an overhead. It's called an orthomosaic, and your orthomosaics can come in the form of just a regular RGB map, a thermal map, plant health, elevation, whatever it is you're looking at. It's just basically an orthomosaic is just a map of some sort. But we get a lot of really good information out of these maps as compared to just going out and spending a bunch of money on a near infrared camera or multispectral camera that we may or may not need. So just by looking at this picture here, I can see that there's some different colorations going on in there, whether it's whether it's terrain differences from maybe being a heavy clay soil versus a silt loam that has a little more fertility to it, versus something that might be a little wetter, causing your plants to reflect a different color. And that's really what we're looking at, is just we're looking at different colorations, because different colorations tell us if there's an issue within some of the plants. But the beautiful thing is, as a farmer, as somebody that works for utilities, somebody that works for doing inspections on a bridge or whatever, most of the time, all I need to do is just get up above and be able to see things that I can't see from the ground. So as you watch this short video, hopefully everybody's internet will allow it to allow them to see it. Look and put your farmer hat on and see if you can find any issues in this field that you might want to know as a farmer. So I'll see if I can get it to play here. Here we go. And I'm just spinning 360. So as you look at that, as a farmer, I look at that and I see, just right here, I can see that there's some issues where I didn't get the planter put down. So I've got bare soil. I've got some places where the row unit might have got plugged, and I've got some what we call skips. Those are the long lines out there in the field as you go back and forth. As you go around a little farther, you can see places where I've turned around on the end, or I've used a different hybrid. Here you can see some different hybrids in here. And it almost looks like somebody just went driving through the field in one spot. But as you come around a little farther, you get over here and whoops, went the wrong way. Sorry. Try this one more time. Okay, now I did it again. Anyhow, when you get around there to the other side, I won't stop it this time, I promise. You get around here to the other side, you look down there at the bottom, you can see some weeds. That's the light green stuff. There are some issues there that you would not be able to see from the side of the field. And who's got time to go out there and walk up and down every row of, if you have a couple thousand acres, you're not going to get anything done. So, just getting overhead and seeing what your issues are can tell you where you need to go look. This goes on a little bit more about what I was saying a few minutes ago. One camera versus another. The top left was taken with just an RGB camera, and the one on the right was taken with a near infrared. So you're looking at visible light versus invisible light. Some people will tell you that the invisible light will allow you to see more things sooner uh, as you're out field scouting. Well, yeah, maybe, but let's be honest. Most people are only going to go out and fly over their fields once, maybe twice through the growing season. So I'm going to spend a little less money, and I'm just going to use my RGB camera and stitch my plant health there on the bottom left versus having a specific software and a specific camera for an NDVI picture or an NDRE picture on the right. And no, I don't expect you to know what the acronyms are. They're not important. The important thing is I'm going to save a little bit of money, and I'm going to get very similar results left between the two pictures. Again, all I'm doing is just trying to figure out where I need to go do my field scouting. Thermal imaging has become a very hot topic over here over the last few years. I bought me a drone with a thermal camera on it and found out that, hey, it'll take pictures while I'm mapping with my RGB camera the same time. So I started collecting in thermal and RGB, and I found out I can make maps with it. Is it useful information? I don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. One thing that we did learn from it is we have an easier time finding field tile, so underground drainage tile. Anything that's been put in the last 30 years is really easy to see. Some of the stuff that's prior to that's a little harder, but you can find it, especially if you fly during favorable conditions, which is usually either really wet or wet going to dry. Um, we've used them to find soil moisture. So there's all kinds of there are good things that you can look at. When I first started flying with thermal, everybody kept saying, "Oh, fly at night, fly at night. You can find foliar diseases because the bacteria is more active at night, and the fungus is active at night as opposed to through the day." I tried it. In fact, if you look at the background on my picture, you can see you see a thermal image of a field where we flew out at the Davis Purdue Ag Center at about midnight one night, and I was just collecting pictures, and that's a soybean field that had a couple different varieties in it, and it was just a really neat picture. So I kept it and made it my background. But again, you can get some really good information from both of those different images. Once again, I talked a little bit about LiDAR. This is a LiDAR, a 3D LiDAR picture from a utility where they mapped and modeled some power lines and the wow, I just lost the word. The distance from the trees to the power line. Um, they have to be so far away so that you don't you have less chances for power outages and whatnot. Um, so they can go through and they can set tolerances to figure out what trees, what vegetation needs to be taken down or trimmed back, so that there's enough room between the power lines and the trees, so there won't be any issues. But this is just one case or one use case for the LiDAR. There are people using LiDAR for mapping very, very accurately. Um, it's Yeah. And it's in just about every industry. Uh, I've yet to get my hands on a LiDAR camera. I'm hopeful that there's some there's some a grant that we're applying for over the next few months that might give us the opportunity to get one of these cameras. So cross my fingers and hope and see what I can get. Okay, so different use cases. We've already kind of looked at the differences of a plant health versus a an RGB map. Again, all we're doing is just looking at differences to see where where we need to go look. In the case of this field, you can see that there's two different hybrids planted out there. One is the red is not an unhealthy uh, hybrid. It just means that its coloration is different from the hybrid next to it. So one's going to show red, one's going to show green. I really like this picture because it shows that somebody forgot to clean the boom out on the sprayer before they changed fields. This happens quite often. It's not unusual. I always tell I always tell my producers, if you're going when you start to spray, go back to the back of the field. So if you forget to clean out the spray boom, nobody will see it. Um, that way your neighbors won't be making fun of you. But you can find different kinds of injury. You can find corn. You can find lodging of plants. What we call lodging, it's just basically corn where the or plants where the stalk has fallen down. Uh, and you can see the shiny part in the shiny part there in the middle of the picture. That's actually water. So there's a huge puddle, pond, whatever you want to call it, there in the middle of that field. And one of the there's two varieties of corn out in this field, and one variety is very susceptible to having standability issues. So let's see, tile drainage. Can you find the tile? Can you see the tile in these pictures? In that top picture, you can see some horizontal lines. You can on the left, you can see some vertical lines. In the bottom picture, they show up a little bit better. So you can see as I turn it off and on, you can see the horizontal the concrete tile that was put in the 60s, and then the plastic tile that was put in there in the 2010s or in 2010. And you can really again see it in the plant health. I need to figure out which field this is and go fly it with the thermal camera to see exactly how much we can see on that as well, because I think that would be a really interesting. It would be interesting to put those three pictures together. Okay, other use cases for the drone marketing. Everybody loves a good picture of their home. You know, I know that people are using they're using these for uh, not mortgage. Good grief. Um, I lost that one. Real estate. Sorry. Uh, use it for real estate. Use it for just taking nice pictures, weddings, all kinds of different uses. Creativity is always going to be king. In this case, this was actually an insurance problem when they were putting in this. They put in a new tower. They screwed up and run over a field tile and ended up having almost 5 acres of soybeans drowned out. So the insurance company had us fly the damaged area, and we were able to give them a very accurate amount of area that was damaged, so they didn't have to go out and estimate. They could do an accurate payout, and then you can see it from a different angle there. Drones are handy for gravel pits, sand and gravel pits, because you can go in and do a very accurate measure on how much sand or stone is in a pile. And we found that the accuracy is really, I've got 95 to 99% accuracy on here. It's really closer to 97 to 99%. So we found that it's very, very accurate for giving, an area for, a volumetric measure. So it's really kind of neat to see, the way that works out. Turf managers love these, love the drones, because when you start looking at things like football fields, when the players go out and they tear up the grass, a turf manager likes to see, get that overhead view to see where they either need to do more watering, more fertilization, a little less, if they need to do anything at all. So in this case, this is Rossade Stadium over at Purdue. Boiler up, and you can see that they're going to love these kind of pictures. Okay, shifting gears a little bit more, public safety. They are becoming very, very popular with the drones, not just for search and rescue. You can create mission flights. Uh, you can use thermal. You can use RGB. You can get the range finders. The picture on the right, the bottom right, the black and white, those are actually three of my nieces and nephews. Two of my nephews and one of my nieces, they're out in a cornfield in the middle of the night. I told them to go out and hide in the field and try and get away from the drone. And I chased them around for about a half an hour, and I was always right on top of them, able to see them, and they could never get away from me. So police, fire, uh, emergency management, they use the drones all the time for a variety of different uses. Some of it's just to be able to see, to find people. Some of it's to watch people. Some of it's to document accidents or whatever. Uh, this is a picture of our county courthouse across the road. I took this picture 2 or 3 years ago. Just I was looking. I was actually, I don't want to say I was bored. I was looking for new ways to use the drone, and I started taking some pictures. And I found the window. If you look in that left window, in the arch is a different color than the two outside windows. So that center window had lost its seal, and I showed that to one of the maintenance people over at the courthouse. They took it to the commissioners, and they hired a consulting company. Come to find out that several of the windows had lost seal, and the roof was leaking. And now we're in the middle of an $8 million renovation to replace doors, windows, the roof, and several other issues that were going on with the county courthouse. So uh, everybody in the county has been blaming me for undertaking that expense. Okay. For utilities, when we think about what they might do with them, inspections on windmills, solar fields, power transmission lines, substations, distribution lines, whatever. Utilities absolutely love this. We just wrapped up a class at the beginning of this month with several of the REMCs around the state. They had 29 people come down to Bloomington, and we taught them the usefulness of drones and how to get their license for using them in utility usage. Okay, so those are kind of the applications. What do you need to fly your drone if you're going to use it commercially? And there's a difference between using it commercially and using it just flying around for fun. Commercially, the FAA says that Any activity bringing value to your organization, regardless of of nonprofit status, requires you to have your FAA Part 107 certification. It's not as hard to get as what it sounds, but if you're going to use the drone for your YouTube channel, for your business, for your church, whatever it is that you're using it for, you probably need to be licensed. Um, a lot of farmers will say, well, it's my ground, I don't need to be licensed. Well, your farm is your business. Yeah, you need to be licensed. There are several provisions for the drones that you have to pay attention to. You're only allowed to fly up to 400 feet. You got to keep it in line of sight. You're not allowed to fly after dark unless you've got a light on it that can be seen for 3 statute miles. You have to give right away to other aircraft. You can't fly in controlled airspace without permission. So there's a lot of things that go along with it. I'm getting ready to wrap up here. I do want to talk a little bit about spray drones because these are up and coming. You're going to see more and more of these out doing mostly fungicide work, but there are some that are using it for herbicide. So normally you see these things from the middle of June to the end of August, but you can use them for herbicide, through the whole growing season. You can take the spray tanks off and put a dry tank on and use it for seed, for cover crop seeds, or heck, you could put salt in them and salt your driveway with it if you wanted to. So just any kind of application. Licensing is pretty heavy. When you start talking about licensing, you have to have what they call the Part 137 aerial application license. That's your federal area application. You have to have that even if you're flying an airplane, a helicopter, a drone. You have to have that. You have to have that license. As drone operators, we get a lot more waivers with them, but we still have to have it. It's more of a process than a fee. It can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get your 137. So if that's something of interest, start early. Your 107 is just basically passing the test and uh, and getting your license. If you're going to fly a drone that's over 55 pounds, like the one that was on the previous slide, you have to have your section 44807 waiver. If you're going to do aerial application, you have to have your state category 11 aerial application license, and they will not give that to you until you have your Part 137. And then you also have to have what they call the class 3 medical card, uh, which is similar to getting like a CDL physical or something like that. And I love the picture that I found yesterday. It says, and we'll put just a little bit of regulation over here. These are regulated very heavily because somebody can do a lot of damage with one of these things if they don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, there are a lot of spray drones out there that are not licensed or registered with the FAA. You might see some of these trailers floating around where they'll have a flat deck up at the top, and basically they use those for landing and refuel, or changing batteries and filling the spray tanks. It's really kind of a neat setup. They'll have generators on the trailer to charge batteries, and then you can see the big tank down there where they've got product. They can just run a hose up top and put a new battery in it and relaunch. And most of these drones anymore, the DJI Agris T50 or a Helio AG 232, some of these drones can hit 40 or 50 acres per hour, and they start to become competitive with the big spray rigs that you see on the family farm. However, these things can be dangerous. If you get your fingers, arms, or whatever into the drone, you can lose a finger, you can get cut pretty bad. I'm going to show a picture of somebody that got a little too close to a spray drone. This just happened here last week. The picture is very graphic. So if you don't want to see it, I would say turn away now. And I'm going to show it to everybody for just a few seconds, and then I'm going to move on so that we don't have to dwell on that. Okay. So if you don't want to see it, turn away in 3, 2, 1, turn away now. There's the picture. The dude got his arm into the propellers of a spray drone, and it got him all the way down to the bone. Okay. So you can look again. I'm about out of time here. So, but I showed that picture because uh, it's real easy to get your hands or your arms into the propellers of these things. I personally got my hand into one of them here about 5 years ago, and it cut me from here all the way down, to the bottom of the palm. Laid it open pretty good, and it hurt like the devil. It bled. It bled pretty good too. Um, I didn't go to the hospital. I did not have to have stitches, but it was very, very painful. So I'm going to skip the rest of this because this is very, very, very ag intensive, and I did want to put this up there. Yeah, I'll just share that one. Well, let me try this one more.
And while
Let's
we're
share it.
wrapping up, yep, while we're wrapping up, I did put the post survey in, so if you guys who are attending could answer that, that helps us out while Mark's getting his screen up.
What do you guys see right now?
Questions. We see PowerPoint.
Okay. Yeah, so that's my contact information right there. If you have questions, you can give me a call. I guess I didn't put my phone number on there. Phone number here at the office is 765-348-3213. If somebody wants to throw that in the chat. I'll throw that in the chat here. Yeah, there we go. Thank you,
So,
Jeff.
Mark, as we're wrapping up here, a lot of our clientele are the master gardeners from the little bit of time we had at the beginning there. So, what are some practical applications that a master gardener or somebody with a home gardener could use for drones and that we've talked about here today?
Well, depending on how big your garden is, I mean, if you know somebody that's got one of the spray drones, I mean, you can do any kind of applications, whether it's fertilizer or some kind of pesticide, or uh, you can. They're not as useful on a per se on a garden. I mean, if you're like a small plot farmer, they'd be a little bit more useful. Um, but really for a home garden use, a drone really isn't as practical because unless unless the soil is wet and you don't want to walk out there, maybe you could use one to fly over and see and see some of the see like where you've got some weeds or where you might have some disease on some of your plants.
We did have a good question. This is a good one. When did spray drones become common? A few years back, the farmer next to me was persuaded by his son to get one. Son was Purdue student at the time using the drone. Son managed to seed my large veggie garden with a cover crop by accident, of course. That's a good point. The seeding drones are pretty cool.
Yeah, the spray drones really come on. They've been on the scene for 10 or 15 years, just not here in the States. That because of some of it was because of licensing, some of it was because of just not they just weren't popular yet. I mean, they've been using them in Japan and South America, Asia. They've been using them for 10, 15 years. because a lot of the terrain that the folks in those countries have, it's not quite the same as, you know, here in America where, you know, we have nice large flat fields. They, you know, they're farming on the sides of mountains and such, and so they've been using the technology for quite a while. Um, Here in the States, it really came on in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's just within the last 3 years has really gotten big.
Other questions, with steering drones, how hard is that to keep in a straight line, just general moving? I guess if you don't mind, Mark, I when I flew drones back as a kid when they weren't as technological, you had to physically keep them in line. The technology is so nice. If you start going out of whack, you just take your hands off the control and it'll stabilize.
Yep, it's the technology is so, like you said, it's so advanced now. You don't have to. Most of the drones, most of the better drones that you buy, will, when you take off, they'll hover, no problem. The ones you buy, the cheap ones you buy at Walmart or Meijer, they still have they're cheap drones, and they don't have the stability in them. And as soon as you let off the thumbsticks, they can, you know, they can kind of go their own way and crash. But, you know, as you get into the when you start spending $200-300 on a drone, you're gonna get something that is professional grade, and it's gonna have the technology in it to let you drop to fly it very easily. I love I can teach anybody how to fly one of these newer drones in about 2 minutes, and to where you won't crash it. And I've told people that all over the Midwest, and I was like, oh no, you couldn't teach me. I just crash. No, I it's really not that hard.
I'll second that. I was scared to touch a drone until I worked with you, Mark, and then I think Lori Du Bois on here, Precision Ag. Between watching Mark and these young adults work drones, I thought I was gonna break it just by looking at it, but no, they're pretty good. We did have another good question here. The difference between drones and large machinery, any chance that it could or would replace them?
I think you're going to start to see a shift, especially from the large sprayers that you see in the field. Now they will not go away. The large sprayers are here, and uh, they are still going to be used. But I think you're going to start to see more and more farms, more and more contractors using a drone, because there's less cost involved. Because a new Haggy with a 120-foot boom, that's from John Deere, with all the John Deere bells and whistles, the See and Spray technology, you're probably going to be in somewhere to that $600,000-700,000 price point. Whereas I can go out and buy the latest and greatest uh, drone, the largest one, for about 40, and that's with all the batteries that I'm going to need. So, yeah, so there are lots. I think we're going to see a lot more artificial intelligence. I see uh, a lot more autonomous equipment, and not just in sprayers, but probably in tractors and maybe combines uh, in the near future. Some of it's a little scary. Some of it's pretty exciting. And I'm not going to tell you which is which. I'll let you make your own mind up over that one.
Diversification, we'll call it that.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
so we had another, this is interesting. Any time limit you can remain over a property other than your own, or can you fly over someone else's property?
Well, if that is a federally registered aircraft, which most drones, commercial and hobbyist, are supposed to be registered if they're above 0.55 pound or 250 grams, you are supposed to register those with the FAA. And as a federally registered aircraft, well, let me put it like this: airplanes don't have to stop and ask your permission to go over your property, even if they're only flying 10 feet over the ground. Drones are the same way. I do not have to ask you if I can cross your property, because that is the airspace is administered by the FAA. It is governed by the FAA. Now, here's the rub. What's the difference between me just flying through airspace, or me trying to be trying to be a nuisance, or some kind of a problem for my neighbor? If somebody is flying over your property and you're not sure what they're doing, do not go into the house and get the shotgun and shoot the drone down, because that is a federal that is a violation of federal law, especially if that is a federally registered aircraft. What you need to do is, if somebody is making themselves a nuisance with a drone over your property, call the local law enforcement, because and if the cops show up and they say we're not the drone police, you can remind them that they enforce local, state, and federal law. And federal law, you know, there are private, I mean, you are entitled to your right to privacy, but I mean, if I'm out flying over your field to get to my field, no, that's not really a violation of the law. But if I'm flying around your house and your backyard, yeah, that's a violation of law. Get somebody, call somebody and try and see if they can resolve the situation. But please do not get the shotgun out and go out and shoot the drone down. I hear more farmers say, well, if somebody's flying around my property, I'm just going to go shoot it down. Don't do that. Bad idea.
All right. Well, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, does that answer the question?
I believe so. We appreciate the questions. We'll go ahead and stop the recording.